Today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. It's currently March 9th, so I was a little confused. Joe and I went on a little vacation to New Mexico, and we just got back yesterday, so I wasn't able to film before we left. Or I guess I could have, but I didn't. How about that? I didn't film before we left, because I was trying to get a book done before we left, and then I worked 3 days, and when I came home one morning, we left immediately to go to New Mexico, and we were gone for like a week. So, like I said, it's currently March 9th, and I finished no other books. But hopefully that'll change soon. So I have some statistics. I don't know if anyone cares about those, but I read a total of 1,800 pages in February, and that's like 258 pages per book, roughly. I read a few shorter books, so my average rating was 3.8. I read 2 books that were a first in a series, 4 books that were a standalone, and 1 that was part of a series that I've been reading. Didn't finish any series. There was 2 5-star books, 1 4-star, 1 3-star, and 1 2-star book. 3 of them I read physically that were from my shelves. 2 I read on my Kindle, and then 2 were audiobooks. And then 1 of the physical books was a book of the month book, because I need to read those. So, the first book I read, which I think I've talked about already on my channel, but I did read it at the very beginning of February. So, Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeny, which I gave 5 stars. And I was very surprised I gave 5 stars. Kind of, because this book, Daisy Darker, also by Alice Feeny, was the last thing I tried to read by her. Everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. I never finished it. Like, I could not finish it. I still would like to, but I was not able to finish it. So I didn't have high hopes for this one, but I loved it. I read it when it was snowy outside and I was stuck inside for a few days. It's about this married couple who are going through kind of like a rocky part in their marriage. So the wife books this secluded cabin-y. It's an old church that they have like made into a house, but she books that for the weekend in hopes that they can like connect, leave their work and life behind, and kind of come together over the weekend. Well, some spooky stuff starts happening, and they kind of realize maybe this like place wasn't random. Maybe someone like wanted them to come to this place. And the twist in this book, I did not see coming at all. I like flipped back to the beginning and I read some more from the front, or in the beginning, because I was like, there's no way that just happened. Like, I did not just read that. Also, my heater was just on. I realized it kicked off, so hopefully this doesn't sound terrible. And I also don't have my mic because Joe's laptop isn't here for me to hook it all up, so the audio will probably also be awful. I apologize to everyone and Joe, because he's gonna be probably mad at me. So, very good. Rock, Paper, Scissors. Highly recommend if you haven't read it. The next book I read was The Scorch Trials, which is the second book in the Maze Runner series. I actually listened to it on audio, but I own the physical book. I gave this 2 stars. I did not enjoy this one. I felt like it dragged. I didn't want to listen. I'm pretty sure, I started this one like months ago. I started it right after I finished Maze Runner, which I can't remember when I did that, and it's taken me this long to finish it. Like, I just didn't want to pick it up at all. I had no interest in it. Finally, I just like picked it up, sped it up one day, and just like finished it. Like, the beginning, it started out well, and I liked the end, but the middle dragged so long. Because in this one, they have escaped the maze. I hope that's not a spoiler. He's been out for so long. But they've escaped the maze, and they're like in this desert called the Scorch, the entire book, and it was just so boring because there's nothing there. It's just a desert. So I did not like this one. This is a dystopia. I remember when I talked about the Maze Runner, I kind of didn't explain it because I just assume everyone's read it, but it's just like a dystopian novel where these kids wake up in this like gated community with a maze they call the Glade, and they don't remember anything. Like, they just wake up there And there are these people telling them, oh, you're in the maze, this is what you do, we're trying to fix the maze, and there's people running it, but we don't know who they are. And you pretty much know nothing when you start, and the whole thing is our main character trying to figure out where he is, why he's there, what's the point of the maze, who's watching them, and all that. And then this one, you kind of learn more about the people who put them in the maze. So I am reading the third one currently, and I am enjoying it slightly more than this one, but not a whole lot, if I'm being honest. Not a whole lot. And then the next one I read was Breach of Peace by Daniel Greene. Daniel Greene is a YouTuber here. He talks about fantasy books. I think he reads some sci-fi, but mostly fantasy. This is his first novel. It's like a beginning kind of, what's it called? A prequel, I think. I mean, it's called book 1, but I'm pretty sure it's like a prequel. Because his next one is really big. So at least this one's large and in charge. But I haven't started that one. I'll put it there. I really like this one. I was kind of worried because I don't read a lot of fantasy. But it is like a detective. So it starts off pretty gruesome. I wasn't really ready for that. So there is this really prominent family in this society, and this inspector goes to their house because they've all been murdered. The whole family's been murdered. It's super brutal. There's blood everywhere. And so they're trying to figure out who killed them. And while they're in the house investigating, something really weird pops up. And then it's fantastical. I don't even know how to explain what it was, but mostly the whole thing is them trying to like solve this case in this like fantasy world. Like, it's not in our world, so it's different, and there's these other weird things happening. I'm not explaining it very well. I'm sorry, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I can't say a whole lot because it was really short. But I flew through it. The words are humongous, and it was really good. I was very surprised, and I'm very excited to read the next one. The next book I read was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. This is a nonfiction, like, autobiography about Jennette's life. So Jennette was a child actor on Nickelodeon, iCarly. There we go. Couldn't think of the name. On iCarly. So this is about her, like, upbringing, how she got started into acting, her, relationship with her mom, her brothers, her dad, getting the iCarly role because she acted for years before that, her time on iCarly, her struggles with eating disorder. There's a lot of talk of eating disorder in this book, which was my favorite part of it because I guess I just I've never really read a book, or I want to say known anyone with an eating disorder, but maybe I did. I just didn't know they had it, So it was really interesting to see her thoughts around food and kind of what shaped her eating disorder because she wasn't born with it. And that part I enjoyed the most, like just her thoughts around food and how she like broke that. This book's very sad. All the trigger warnings, abuse of all kinds. Of course, eating disorders, like I said, there's a lot of weird stuff that happened to her when she was acting. But I really enjoyed how it was written. In the book, Jennette said, she never really wanted to act. It was her mom who wanted her to act, but she wanted to write. And I feel like you can kind of tell, like, it's just written so well, in my opinion. And it was written in present tense, so it honestly felt like a fiction book, like you're reading it as these things are happening. She didn't say, like, oh, when I was 13, one night, like, my mom said this, and then it led to this. Like, no, she's saying it as if it's happening right, like, present tense, obviously, that's what that means. But, like, Mom is in the ICU at the hospital. The doctor told us she has 48 hours to live. They're out in the waiting room calling relatives and eating vending machine snacks. Grandma says Nutter Butter soothe her anxiety. So, like, it's just told in present tense, and I really enjoy it. I also really enjoyed, the chapters are super, super short, which I love that in a book because you can just, like, fly through it. I flew through this book. So good. Another thing I really enjoyed about it, which I saw a bad review on GoodReads, that, you know, she just told the bad parts of her life, and, you know, none of the good parts, and there was no, like, buildup of her childhood. She just, like, boom, this was an incident where my mom did this. This was an incident where this happened, and not necessarily the buildup of how those things came to fruition. But I enjoyed that there was no fluff. Like, every chapter was its own, like, memory, its own situation. So, like, it would go from this happened, here's the explanation of what happened that day, and then the next chapter is like, could be days later, could be weeks later, could be years later, but here's another thing that happened to me that kind of shaped me. And she tells these things in so much detail. Like, I truly don't think I could ever remember which, I mean, I guess if it was traumatic, you remember those things a lot more, but she just remembers so much detail. What they're wearing, what she's wearing, what they're eating, what flavor of ice cream she got. Just, like, crazy details that I could not even tell you about a month ago of my life. But highly recommend if you are okay with all of those trigger warnings and reading something very sad and disturbing about this girl's life. Which, you know, I grew up watching iCarly, so I was very interested in it. And because I knew her, I, you know, was way more interested in her autobiography, because I read another one this month that I will talk about later, but I didn't know the guy before I read the autobiography, so I kind of hated it. But I don't know, I think if you have, like, a connection to that person or an interest in that person or what they've done before, you're much more likely to enjoy the autobiography. Because, I mean, if you don't know the person, you're less likely, like, you're not going to pick up some rando's autobiography, more than likely. The only one I've ever read that I loved that I didn't know the person before was Know My Name by Chanel Miller. But I knew about the case that this is surrounding, so I was, you know, more interested in it. But that's the only one I've read that I didn't know the person. Oh, where was that? Okay, well, I'll figure that out later. Anyway, the next book I read was Love on the Brain by Hazelwood. She wrote The Love Hypothesis, which I really enjoyed when I read it. This one's very similar in its writing, honestly, where it's this woman in science, or in STEM. She calls them STEMinist novels, but this girl, she is in grad school, already has her PhD, not sure, but she gets this, like, opportunity to go to NASA and work on this really, really cool project that she's super excited about. But the other head lead of this project is someone she knew in grad school. Okay, so I guess she has her PhD. Someone she knew in grad school and did not get along with at all. He was in her lab and they clashed a lot, / he just ignored her existence, and he was super rude to her, in her opinion, and ruined her relationship with her ex, in her opinion. I thought it was very similar to her previous novel, you know, this kind of broody, quiet, dark-haired, mysterious guy, and then this girl. But I actually did not like the main character in this one at all. She was super annoying to me. The things she would, like, the reason she doesn't like this guy is so stupid, in my opinion. And just the way she handled a lot of situations was super annoying to me, and I just didn't really like her. I like the main guy a lot. You know, a lot of their previous altercations were pure misunderstanding, or someone just straight up lied to her face, which is kind of annoying, but, you know, they figured it out. Took them way too damn long to figure it out, but they figured it out, you know. So that was a really frustrating thing. Like, obviously you knew stuff they didn't know, so it's very painful to read that when you know and you're just like, just say this one sentence and everything would be fine, but they don't say it because they're dumb. But I did really love the audiobook. The acting was really well done. Like, I really liked the narrator. I did not look who it was, but it was really well done. I also listened to her previous one, The Love Hypothesis. Really liked that one too. So I highly recommend the audiobooks. I do like them if you're interested in the books, but I just didn't like this one as much. And then the villain in this one, because there's a villain in the other one, I feel like it's very obvious who the villain is because he kind of fits the same exact mold as the other guy in Love Hypothesis. Sorry, I'm getting like their names mixed up now. So I don't know, I kind of knew right away who it was, which is super annoying. And I also didn't like the like climax of the book of realizing who the villain is and why. I thought it was so stupid. And then there was like a freaking gun involved, very violent all of a sudden, and I just didn't like that part of it, like the villain story in that one. So I gave it 3 stars. I'll probably keep reading her stuff because I do like them, but I didn't love that one. Hopefully she kind of mixes up her stories a little bit. I'd love to see a love triangle by her, but Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain are very similar. The next one I read at work one night because it was the middle of the night and I was all caught up on my stuff and I was like, okay, well, what do I want to read? And I didn't want to read the autobiography I previously mentioned that I was not enjoying. So I went and downloaded this book called The Garden by Tomi Adeyemi, and it is on Kindle Unlimited. It is part of like a short story collection called, what's it called? Into Shadow. So I read another Amazon short story collection called The Forward Collection, and those were all like sci-fi-esque short stories written by a lot of authors I really love, Blake Crouch, Andy Weir, John Mars, Veronica Roth. There was some more, but those are the only ones I can remember right now. I loved all of those. Ooh, N.K. Jemisin wrote one. Some more than others, but I loved all of those. So this one was pitched as a like thriller-esque short story collection. So of course I wanted to read it. This was the first one. So I haven't read any of the other ones yet, but this author, Tomi Adeyemi, I have read from before. She wrote Children of Blood and Bone, I believe. So that was a book, like a fantasy, it's a YA fantasy like series, and I've read the first 2, and I did really enjoy them. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I know this author, I'll pick this up, but I did not. I don't want to say I didn't enjoy it, but I just don't know what I read. It was so confusing to me, and like by the end of it, I was like, okay, like I don't know what I was supposed to get out of that. So I didn't rate it because I don't want to rate it bad because I don't know if it was necessarily bad. I just didn't understand what the heck I just read. Maybe it's because I read it at like 4 a.m. or it's just so short so it wasn't very fleshed out, or if I just genuinely didn't like it. But it's about this girl, a young girl, who her mother went missing because she was in search of this thing called the Garden, which to her mom was like this magical thing. So she goes to Brazil and hires this tour guide, and she has like this map, and this guy helps her find this garden or whatever, and then in the end she finds it and it just like ends. So I guess that's spoiling it, but I don't know, like I just don't understand what it was about. But I do want to read some of the other ones because there are other authors I like recognize in the other ones, and I've heard good things about other ones of the short stories in that collection, so I do plan on reading them. I just did not like that one or understand it. So the last book I read it on my Kindle. It is called This Boy's Life by Tobias Wolff. This is the other autobiography I told you about. So I think I've mentioned before, I have like a book club with 2 of my close friends who really like to read, and every month we like one person picks a book. So this month my friend Barbara Jo picked this book because she read this guy has a brother who also wrote an autobiography. Don't know his name at all, but she read that autobiography and really liked it, I think, and she thought it would be interesting to read like the brother's autobiography because they were raised together, but then their parents divorced. One brother went with the dad, one brother went with the mom. So she thought it'd be really interesting to see, the childhood dynamic. She's also a social worker, if that explains why she'd be interested in that. I mean, it does sound cool, but I didn't read the other one. So I had like nothing to compare it to. But this guy, I guess, wrote some short stories at some point. I don't really know. And he taught English at some school, I think. But I didn't care about his life because I didn't know who he was. So I just didn't care. I also hated him. Like, that's dramatic. But, you know, I guess he was a young and a kid. But, like, he's telling these stories of his life. And I'm like, you're making some stupid decisions. Like, I just don't like you. It makes me not like you. He lies. He cheats. He steals. He is just off. Like, I don't know. He just, like, wasn't. He was annoying. Like, I didn't like him. So I didn't enjoy the book. And I didn't care about his life. And I didn't want to read it. And it took me a really, really, really long time to read it. I finished it technically on March 1st at like 5 a.m. at work. Because the one night I was just like, I'm going to freaking finish this book. And I may have skimmed it aggressively. But I finished it. Because I needed to be done with it. I didn't rate that one either. Because I don't like rating, usually, autobiographies. Because it's someone's life. Like, I don't know, that's weird to me to rate someone's life, if that makes sense. Like, oh, your life was boring. 0 stars. Okay, well, he can't change that. You know what I mean? He has another one. He has another autobiography which shocked me to my core that this one did well enough where he thought he could write another one, but he did. So this one was just his childhood, like up to, I think, high school. Like, I don't think he ever got out of high school in it, but I guess he does end up going into the army or something and fighting in a war. Vietnam? Question mark? I don't actually know which one it was, but his other autobiography is about that. So, good for him, I guess. But I did not like that one. Sorry, Bobby. She didn't like it either, my friend who picked it, so that made me feel better. But she also told me she didn't like it before I ever even started it, so that... Don't ever do that again, Bobby, because it was so bad. I didn't want to pick it up because I knew you didn't like it and I didn't want to read it, but I read it. Those are all the books I read. I think it was 7 books. So I read 7 books, not the best, but I think it was better than last month. I think I only read 5. February was a really weird month. Like, it felt really long, but also short at the same time. Like, obviously February is a super short month. There's 28 days. But I felt like it went on forever. Like, Rock, Paper, Scissors, which I finished at the beginning of the month. Felt like I read that so long ago. But I didn't, obviously. I'm hopeful March will be a good reading month. It's not starting out that way. But I was on vacation, so I didn't read that much. But hopefully it'll get better, and I will love more of what I've read that month. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you're interested in any of them. And if you have read them, let me know what you thought down below. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Excuse me. I'm currently making a thumbnail for this video, and I stumbled upon, I looked up this boy's life, take a picture of the cover, and put it on there. Whatever. This Boy's Life, a movie, popped up with Leonardo DiCaprio, and apparently it is based off of this book. I'm gonna have to watch the movie because it's Leonardo DiCaprio, but I had no idea it was a movie. I just need to let you know that it is also a movie.